Hi there, it's Natasha and thank you so much for joining me today. We are going to start out with a 110 pound Nina Solar White card base, which is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And then I have a piece of Nina Solar White 80 pound paper, which is 4 by 5 1/4 inches. So just a little border left around the outside. Then I have these two stamp sets from Paper Smoochers here. They are Botanicals 2 and Botanicals 3. I have had these for years and years and I love them and I still use them all the time. They are some of my absolute go-tos for foliage. I'm going to use some VersaFine Clair Morning Mist, which is just a grey ink. This happens to be a pigment ink, so it does work well for stamping. And I'm just going to stamp this 3 times more towards the bottom right hand corner of my page. Now I have these tiny little alphabet dies here and I'm just going to sort out the letters that I need, get them all put aside. Now there are definitely a few ways to line up letters, but this way here is one of the easiest. I think I saw maybe Jennifer McQuire doing it. I just tack down lightly a piece of low tack tape onto my desk here. Now I am going to write with sympathy, so I want to do the bottom word first, and I want to technically spell it backwards because I will be flipping this around. But because I need the Y and then the S at the beginning, and I've already used the Y at the end of the letter, I'm just going to do all but those. So you can see that I'm going to line it up on the bottom here. I've got my little helper hands always helping me to the side, so you see their hands pop in and out. I'm going to run that through my die cutting machine, and here's the way that I'm going to line up these letters. So I am going to take off the Y, which is the one that I need, and then I'm going to take off a couple more, but I'm going to leave the M, the P, and the A. And this gives me enough to line them up with in a minute. So I'm just going to add the S and the Y, just by lining them up with the bottom of my low tack tape, and then I take my card front to the dies rather than the other way around, and that way I just kind of fit them in like a puzzle piece on the back and everything is lined up perfectly. And the reason that I wanted to do the sympathy word first is because that way I get my spacing from the bottom of my page perfectly. So now I'm going to do the same thing with the with word, just line it all up on my low tack tape. And then because I know that it's lined up with the bottom line of my tape, that means I can line it up nice and straight with where the other letters are on the page. So this is kind of a right hand aligned page, and there is the die cutting part all done and dusted. Now I'm going to use the squeezed lemonade color here. This is just a light yellow. This happens to be a distressed oxide color. I'm using a little bit of watercolor paper because I just want the cardstock to be this color. I did look through my stash and see if I had kind of a nice, really light, warmish yellow color, and I didn't really have what I needed, so I'm just going to make it. And because this is going to be a sympathy card, I didn't want it to be kind of a bright, joyous, out there yellow. It was just going to be a nice yellow and grey tones, suitable to the occasion. So I am adding on the letters here, the same letters, the with sympathy, and because I'm going to be doing some inlaid technique. Now this is going to be a completely flat one layer card, which is maybe not happen that often on my channel. This would be one of the first, because if I struggle with anything, it is with making completely one layer cards. Anyhow, I'm putting on a little bit of double-sided adhesive tape here onto the backing of my letters, and this is a nice easy way. You could definitely just use plain cardstock on the back and then add in some liquid glue to get your letters all to stick, but this was just a nice easy way so that all of those letters just stick in nicely. Now when I was die cutting these, I need to make sure that you keep the inside of the P and the A because we will need to place those back in the inside. But aside from this, I just use this little wax pencil here, which is actually maybe a nail salon wax pencil, but it has the just perfect amount of stickiness that I can pick up all of my letters with, and it lets them go nice and easy. The other thing with this card is that this really didn't take me too long. The with sympathy, the die cut inlay was kind of the longest part of this, but the card came together really quickly. I had a rough idea in my mind of what I wanted it to look like, and it came out fairly close to that. I'm using the same grey ink here just to add in a tiny little border, because I have this thing with borders at the moment where I'm really enjoying kind of adding them to most of my cards. This is a really, really tiny thin border. I don't know the measurement, I don't measure, I just eyeball it. And I just used a piece of low-tech tape there to help me create it with a finger dauber. So once that's all done, I'm just adding the finishing touches. I am going to take off the release paper from the adhesive sheets and the adhesive tape, pop it onto my card base there. This is going to be a landscape one instead of a portrait one. And then I just wanted to quickly show you what I've been using recently. This is a pack of acrylic blocks from Elena Crafts. This comes as a set and it's pretty much the only blocks that you'll need. It has pretty much got every size covered, and I had a few questions asking me which blocks I've been using, and this is my whole set here. So I put the sizes of the blocks that come in the set on the screen just then, so it gives you a rough idea of how big everything is. So I hope that was helpful. Now, using the smallest block here and a piece of 3mm fun foam, I also have a little hole punch here. This is a bit of an old school one. Now this tiny little hole punch here is going to become my stamp. So I'm just adding a little bit of adhesive to my acrylic block. You can just see a tiny bit there. I'm picking it up and then using the same inks that I used with the squeezed lemonade, which is the yellow. The Hickory Smoke is just a slightly lighter grey than what I was using with the Morning Mist of the VersaFine Clair inks, and I'm going to add some small dots around the outside here just to finish off this piece. So this dot here is quite big, even though it was made using a tiny little hole punch. Then I'm going to use these little tools here, and they have these rounded ends on them, and that is how I'm going to create some smaller dots. So I just put those in my ink pad and then just press down, and that creates some nice small dots. And I can choose where the placement is. You could definitely just do some splatters as well, I guess. However, this is definitely a much more controlled technique. Thank you guys so much for watching today. I hope that you guys love my one layer card. I'm truly proud of myself for once. I did it and I really like the outcome. Thanks so much for joining me. I'll see you next time. Bye.